Prepare to be shocked by the true story of Elizabeth Taylor, Hollywood's most famous star, whose life was anything but a fairy tale. Imagine that her huge house was left empty, a silent reminder of her busy life with 7 men and 4 kids. That's not all, though. The huge amount of money she left behind and her amazing net worth show even more secrets. Let's learn more about Elizabeth Taylor's story that hasn't been told before. Throughout her adult years, Elizabeth Taylor's personal life, especially her complicated and well-known love relationships, was closely watched by the media, and people were interested in her. A big part of this was that she had been married 8 times, 2 of them to the same man. This added a lot to the legend that grew up around her from a young age. Alexander Walker, a biographer, said very wisely that Elizabeth Taylor's marriage was at the center of the myth that started when she was 16 years old, whether she liked it or not. This really shows how important the theme of marriage was in shaping not only how people saw Taylor but also who she was in the early stages of her work. This story starts in 1948, a very important year in Taylor's life. That's when MGM, the studio that had found and helped her become a star since she was a child, started to set up her relationships in ways that were typical of Hollywood at the time. That same year, MGM set her up with Glenn Davis, an American football winner whose fame fit perfectly with the studio's plans to keep Taylor in the spotlight. It wasn't just a random hookup in this relationship. Taylor made it clear that she wanted to marry Davis as soon as he finished his military service in Korea. This showed that she was serious about her plans and reflected the time's focus on young love ending in marriage. The next year, Taylor's relationship news continued to make waves when she got engaged to William Pauley Jr., who is the son of the famous U.S. diplomat William D. Pauley. This relationship also had the potential to raise Taylor's social status and bring her closer to elite people outside of Hollywood. However, Taylor's love choices were not just based on studiousness or social climbing, even though she had carefully built these relationships. Howard Hughes, the famous film mogul, was another famous suitor. His interest in Taylor showed how attractive she was and how far powerful men were ready to go to get her hand in marriage. Hughes even offered Taylor's parents a 6-figure sum, which was a huge amount at the time, to get her to marry him. But Taylor turned down Hughes's offer, saying that he had some control despite the changing outside forces. Behind these public relationships, Taylor's reasons for wanting to get married were strongly rooted in her upbringing and ideas about the world. She grew up in a very strict environment where she learned that love and marriage were inextricably linked. This was a common idealized view in America in the middle of the 20th century. This set of beliefs shaped how she approached romantic relationships in the beginning, as she looked for approval and safety in the structure of marriage. Later, Taylor honestly admitted that she was emotionally immature, saying that her sheltered youth and the controlling ways her parents and MGM treated her made her unprepared to handle adult relationships on her own. Marriage was then not only expected by society, but also a way for Taylor to show that she was separate from her parents and the studio system that had a lot of power over her life. She saw getting married as a way to be independent and free, and as a way to make her own identity different from the one MGM had created for her. But this pursuit put her under constant public scrutiny. The media and the public both looked closely at each of her marriages, which added to a reputation that sometimes overshadowed her artistic successes. Elizabeth Taylor married Conrad Nicky Hilton Jr., the rich heir to the Hilton Hotel Company, on May 6, 1950. She was only 18 years old at the time. The wedding took place at the Church of the Good Shepherd in Beverly Hills, which is a beautiful and famous spot fit for Hollywood royalty. MGM carefully planned the event because they care about their star's image and the press it could bring them. They didn't just have a private wedding. They put on a big show with a lot of extravagance and attention to detail. Newspapers, magazines, and newsreels all wanted to show the wedding of the beautiful young actor and the heir to one of America's most famous business families. It became a big deal in the media. The wedding itself was very Hollywood for the time. It was fancy, expensive, and planned to get as much attention as possible to boost Taylor's position as a rising star. Helen Rose made Taylor's beautiful wedding dress, which was one of the first of its kind to be widely shot and praised by the media. This helped Taylor become known as a fashion icon. A lot of famous people, socialites, and celebrities were at the event, which added to the idea that Taylor's life was connected to the glittering top of both Hollywood and high society. But behind the fairy tale exterior, Taylor's marriage to Hilton was much more troublesome. She realized that the relationship wasn't what she had hoped for a few weeks after the wedding. The couple didn't have many shared hobbies or emotional ties, which made their relationship feel empty and unconnected from the start. Even scarier, Hilton's behavior quickly showed darker sides. He threw temper tantrums often, and without warning because he drank too much. Soon, it became clear that he was abusive, which broke Taylor's love ideal. This troubled marriage took a heavy toll. During one particularly violent episode, Taylor had a miscarriage, which was a very stressful event that made her problems even worse. Hilton hurt her physically and emotionally, making her feel weak and trapped, which was very different from the glamorous picture that the public saw of her. Taylor had the guts to face the problem head-on, even though she was under a lot of pressure as a young wife and public figure. After months of hard times, she told everyone that they were splitting up on December 14, 1950. This choice was a major turning point in Taylor's life, showing how determined she was to take charge of her own happiness and health. Soon after, the legal process began, and on January 29, 1951, only 8 months after their well-known wedding, Taylor was given a divorce on the grounds of mental cruelty. At the time, this was a brave and somewhat rare thing to do, especially for a young woman. In Hollywood, it also showed how serious the problems were in her marriage. Elizabeth Taylor's second marriage to British actor Michael Wilding was very different from her first marriage, which happened quickly and got a lot of attention. With this new search, Taylor was looking for something different: more security, maturity, and company. Their wedding, which took place in a fairly low-key service at Caxton Hall in London on February 21, 1952, was very different from her previous wedding, which was a huge media event. There was something calm and steady about Wilding, who was 20 years older than Taylor, that Taylor was looking for at this point in her life. In 1948, Taylor met Wilding for the first time while shooting The Conspirator in England. However, their relationship didn't really start to grow until she went back to England in 1951 to work on Ivanhoe. When Taylor made this link while her movie career was taking off, it gave her a sense of emotional security that she hadn't had before. Taylor thought that the big age difference was an advantage rather than a problem. She looked for peace and safety in friendship with Wilding, which was very different from the chaos of her first marriage. For Wilding, the marriage had its own benefits. Getting married to Taylor, a rising Hollywood starlet, he thought would help him get better roles in American movies since he was a British actor whose career was on the decline. While Taylor's job kept going up, Wilding's wasn't going as smoothly. This made things more difficult between them in the future. Their marriage was marked by the birth of 2 boys, both of whom were very important to Taylor. Michael Howard Wilding was born on January 6, 1953, and Christopher Edward Wilding was born on Taylor's 23rd birthday, February 27, 1955, making the event even more important to her. Taylor's job as a demanding executive assistant took on a whole new level of joy and duty when she became a mother. Even though things seemed stable at first, their relationship quickly started to fall apart. Taylor started to grow apart from Wilding as she got older and more sure of herself in her personal and work life. His job kept getting worse, and this made things hard in his marriage. The older, more stable husband supporting the young star seemed like the perfect mix at first, but as their lives changed, it started to fall apart. Scandals hung over the last few years of their marriage. While Taylor was away shooting Giant in 1955, The gossip magazine Confidential caused a stir by saying that Wilding had hosted strippers at their home. The story, whether it was true or made up, added to the media craze about Taylor's personal life and put more stress on a marriage that was already in bad shape. In the end, Taylor and Wilding revealed their split on July 18, 1956, after being together for almost 5 years. The court signed off on their split on January 26, 1957. Taylor's marriage was an important part of his life, even though it didn't last. Even though Hollywood was crazy at the time, it was a time of relative security and family life. Raising children gave her a sense of stability. The third marriage of Elizabeth Taylor was a turning point in her life. It was full of passion, sadness, and the difficulties of love in the intense spotlight of fame. Taylor got married to Mike Todd, a theater and film director, on February 2, 1957, in Acapulco, Guerrero, Mexico. She was already 3 months pregnant at the time, which made their relationship even more important and deep. This marriage marked the start of a new, exciting time in Taylor's life, one filled with both personal happiness and the constant attention of the public on her every move. Mike Todd was an interesting and flashy person who was known for both his acting and directing skills. He was known for pulling big press stunts, and he didn't miss a chance to make their relationship famous. He threw Taylor a birthday party at Madison Square Garden in New York City in June 1957. It was one of the most dramatic events he ever planned. The party, which was broadcast live on CBS and had an amazing 18,000 guests, showed how dramatic Todd is, and how famous the couple is as Hollywood's golden pair. This event, which was fancy, out of this world, and had to be seen by everyone, was a perfect representation of their relationship. They were blessed with a girl on August 6, 1957. Her name is Elizabeth Frances Todd, but everyone calls her Liza. Taylor was very happy when Liza was born because she was now a mother and her business was doing very well. In the middle of Taylor's turbulent personal life and the constant attention of the media, the birth was a sign of hope and stability. But sadly, the happiness of this time didn't last long. In March 1958, just over a year after they got married, Mike Todd died in a quick and terrible plane crash. Taylor was broken when he died, and she was in a lot of pain. Todd's death was not only a personal loss for Taylor, but it was also a major turning point in her life that made people care more about and be interested in her. The tragedy got a lot of attention from the media, which made her feelings of sadness even worse. After Todd's death, Taylor found comfort in being with Eddie Pfizer, a singer who was close with both Todd and her. Soon their friendship turned into an affair, which caused one of the biggest scandals of the time. In that time, Fisher was still married to the famous actress Debbie Reynolds. The affair made Fisher look bad in public, and Taylor was called a home wrecker. The story made tabloid headlines and caused public opinion to split, which made people look more closely at Taylor's personal life. Taylor and Fisher's friendship grew stronger despite the problems, and on May 12, 1959, at the Temple Beth Shalom in Las Vegas, they got married. Taylor later told Fisher that she mostly chose to marry him because she was still upset about Todd's death. This suggests that the marriage was more about finding comfort and security than falling in love. Even though the couple was deeply in love, their emotional baggage, especially Taylor's unprocessed grief, made the marriage difficult. It's interesting to see how Taylor's friendship with Debbie Reynolds changed over time. At first, they were angry at each other because of the affair. In the 1960s, the two women made up, which showed Taylor's ability to forget and how personal relationships can change when there is a public scandal. In 1962, Elizabeth Taylor was in Italy shooting the epic historical drama Cleopatra. During that time, her personal life took a dramatic and well-known turn that would become one of the most famous love stories in Hollywood history. Taylor started an affair with her co-star, the charming Welsh actor Richard Burton, while they were both working on this movie. Both of them were married at the time, and the affair was very public. People were also starting to worry about how much paparazzi and the media were getting into celebs' private lives. On screen, Taylor and Burton had a great relationship that quickly spread to real life. The news started to spread that they were dating, but it wasn't official until a paparazzi picture of them together on a yacht in the beautiful setting of Ischia, an island off the coast of Italy, proved it. This picture was more than just a story for the tabloids. It was a turning point in the history of star culture. A sociologist named Ellis Cashmore says that the release of this picture changed how people thought about the private lives of famous people. From then on, it got harder and harder for famous people to keep their private lives separate from their public ones. The lines between public and private became permanently blurred, bringing about a time of intense media scrutiny fed by the never-ending desire for scandal and rumors. A huge backlash happened because of the incident. Some very important groups, like the Vatican, spoke out against Taylor and Burton very harshly, calling what they did erotic vagrancy. Not only did people morally condemn their extramarital affair, but they were also very worried about how changing sexual norms and the impact of Hollywood stars on public behavior would affect other people. Outrage was felt by more than just religious people. There were even calls in Congress in the U.S. to keep Taylor and Burton from coming back to the country. That showed how big the scandal was and how much moral panic their connection had caused. Even though a lot of people were upset, Taylor was set on making her relationship with Burton official. In Puerto Vallarta, Jalisco, Mexico, on March 5, 1964, she was given a divorce from Eddie Pfizer, who was her husband at the time. Deciding to get a divorce in Mexico was smart because the legal process there was faster and less strict than in the U.S. Taylor married Burton in a small wedding at the Ritz-Carlton in Montreal, just 10 days after she got divorced. This quick change from one marriage to another made the media and public even more interested in the pair. Burton became an important part of Taylor's family life after they got married. He officially took Elizabeth Liza Frances Todd, Taylor's daughter from her first marriage to Mike Todd, as his own. Maria McCann was a German child that Taylor had started the adoption process for while she was still married to Pfizer. Burton also adopted her. Adopting a child showed how much Burton wanted to start a family with Taylor, and showed a softer, more personal side of the pair. Their troubled public image often casts a shadow over their work. Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton's relationship was one of the most well-known, troubled, and long-lasting in Hollywood history. The press called them Liz and Dick, which stuck as a shorthand for their public, passionate love affair and the dramatic ups and downs of their time together. They have been in 11 movies together over the years. Their energy on screen matched how intense their relationship is off-screen. Their relationship went beyond work and became very personal, turning into a full-on shared lifestyle that caught the attention of people all over the world. Taylor and Burton's life was filled with luxury and extravagance, thanks to their huge wealth. They spent millions of dollars on expensive things that became symbols of how big their lives were. Rich people can afford expensive things like furs, diamonds, paintings, fashion clothes, trips, food, drinks, a private yacht, and even a personal jet. This way of life summed up the glitz and excess of Hollywood's upper class in the middle of the 20th century, and it was the subject of endless debate and interest. Sociologist Karen Sternheimer says that people's lives turned into a cottage business of guessing about what they did wrong. The public and the press loved hearing about their huge spending sprees, claimed extramarital affairs, and rumors that they were married to someone else. People saw the couple as a sign of a new era of intrusive gotcha celebrity coverage, where the media loves a story that is personal and sexy. The public's interest in the private lives of celebrities was sparked by Taylor and Burton's story. It shows how people's views on fame and privacy changed during that time. That time, their marriage was full of ups and downs. In June 1974, under a lot of personal and work stress, the couple got divorced for the first time. But their love was strong, and they got back together. They got married again less than a year later on October 10, 1975, in Kasane, Botswana, in a small wedding. They split up less than a year later in July 1976, after being married for only a short time. People and the media were fascinated by their frequent breakups and reunions, which added to the idea that they were a pair with strong feelings for each other but constant disagreements. The media often called their relationship the marriage of the century, which summed up the drama and glitz that surrounded them. Later, Taylor thought about Burton's unique place in her life and said, "After Richard, the men in my life were just there to hold the coat and open the door. After Richard, all the men were really just company," she said, which showed how much Burton affected her emotionally and romantically. He set a bar and left a mark that no other partner could follow. Soon after her final split from Burton, Taylor met her sixth husband, Republican politician John Warner from Virginia. This was the start of a new time in her personal life. On December 4, 1976, they got married. This marriage was very different from the Hollywood-based relationships she had been in before. It brought her into politics. Taylor threw herself into Warner's campaign for office, fully embracing the part of a political spouse. The change, however, was difficult. Warner was elected to the U.S. Senate, and Taylor found that living in Washington, D.C., by herself was painful and empty. The big change from her previous glamorous life led to a time of depression, weight gain, and becoming more and more dependent on booze and prescription drugs. During these hard times, their marriage got worse. Taylor and Warner broke up in December 1981 and got a divorce on November 5, 1982. In this part of Taylor's life, the problems she had outside of fame were brought to light. She battled loneliness and addiction while dealing with the demands of being a political wife. At the same time, Taylor was going through a transformation as she tried to figure out who she was beyond being a Hollywood star and icon. Despite being less publicized than her high-profile and fast-paced marriages in the past, Elizabeth Taylor's love life continued to be very interesting to many people after her split from John Warner. Taylor dated a lot of different guys after she and Warner broke up. Actors Anthony Geary and George Hamilton were among them. These relationships were important, but they didn't lead to marriage. This shows that Taylor was looking for companionship on her own terms, without the intense media attention that came with her past relationships. Taylor was going to marry Mexican lawyer Victor Luna between 1983 and 1984. People paid attention to the engagement, but it did not end in marriage. After that, in 1985, she got engaged again, this time to an investor from New York named Dennis Stein. Neither of these proposals led to a wedding, which may have shown how Taylor's ideas about love and relationships had changed over the years, shaped by the many difficult and painful experiences she had been through. The two men met in 1988 at the Betty Ford Center, where both were getting help for drug abuse. Larry Fensky was a building worker that Taylor met there. When they met at such a weak point in their lives, it was the start of a relationship that was different from Taylor's previous famous relationships. Fensky wasn't a famous person from Hollywood. He was just a normal guy. They were connected because they both had problems and needed help getting better. On October 6, 1991, Elizabeth Taylor and Larry Fensky got married at the Neverland Ranch of her close friend Michael Jackson. This added a bit of fame to a more normal part of Taylor's life. The wedding got a lot of attention from the media. A photographer parachuted onto the land to take pictures of the ceremony, which was a dramatic and unusual move that showed how interested people are in Taylor's personal life. Taylor took advantage of the media frenzy and sold People magazine the exclusive rights to the wedding pictures for $1 million, which is about £231 million today. Taylor used this money to start her AIDS Foundation, which marked a shift in her focus from business to charity and advocacy for a cause that would become very important to her reputation. Even though it was a public show, the marriage was hard and didn't last long. Taylor and Ferensky got a divorce on October 31st, 1996, but they stayed in touch for the rest of their lives. Their breakup was caused by very personal things. Taylor had several painful hip surgeries that limited her health and ability to move around. Ferensky had obsessive-compulsive disorder, which made their relationship difficult. The fact that they are still in touch and close after getting divorced shows that they loved and respected each other even before they were married. Ferensky got a major brain injury in the winter of 1999 when he fell off a balcony and was out of commission for 6 weeks. This made Taylor's care for him even more clear. Taylor was right there with him and told the doctor that she would pay for all of his medical bills herself. This act of kindness and giving showed how connected they were, even though they weren't married. Taylor was very clear about this bond in a letter she sent to him at the end of 2010. "You can't be taken out of my life, and I never wanted to be." The last few moments they talked were just as moving. The last time Taylor talked on the phone with Ferensky was on February 7, 2011, just one day before she went to the hospital for her last stay. During that talk, Ferensky told her that she would live longer than him, which showed how close and caring their relationship was, even though things got hard. Taylor left Ferensky $825,000 in her will after she died. This showed that he was still important in her life, even though they were no longer married. 15 years. Elizabeth Taylor had a lot of major health problems that followed her around her whole life. These problems affected both her physical health and her personal problems. Taylor had health problems from a young age, starting with scoliosis, a condition that made her back curve in a strange way. This birth defect got even worse in 1944, when she was shooting National Velvet as a teenager and hurt her back in a way that wasn't thought to be serious at first. During shooting, she broke her back, but the fracture wasn't found for a few years. The injury that wasn't caught caused her crippling back pain that lasted for decades. It made her daily life harder, and made it harder for her to keep up with the physically demanding schedule of a movie star. Eventually, Taylor had to have a major surgery in 1956 because her back problems got so bad, some of her damaged spinal discs were taken out and replaced with donated bone. This was a very difficult operation for its time. Even with this help, the surgery only partly relieved her pain, and she still had trouble moving around and was in a lot of pain. Other health problems over the years, like a nearly fatal fight with pneumonia in 1961 that required a tracheotomy, a surgical opening in the windpipe to help breathing, made the spinal damage worse. At that time, she was treated with bacteria phage therapy, which uses viruses to kill bacteria. This is still an unusual way to treat someone today. Taylor had health problems with more than just her back and lungs. In 1968, she had an emergency hysterectomy, which was a big surgery that made her back problems worse and caused hip problems that made it harder for her to move and gave her constant pain. The effects of all of these health problems together led to a cycle of pain control that sometimes turned into dependence. Taylor faced addiction to prescription painkillers, alcohol, and tranquilizers. She may have used these drugs at first to deal with both physical and emotional pain. Taylor was the first famous person to publicly say she was going to the Betty Ford Center for treatment for drug abuse. This was a brave and groundbreaking move. Her first stay was for 7 weeks, from December 1983 to January 1984. This choice helped get rid of the shame surrounding addiction treatment and encouraged many more people to get help. Even with all of this help, Taylor relapsed later in the decade, showing how addiction is a long-term problem. It wasn't until 1988 that she went back to rehab, starting her long, hard road to recovery. Taylor's health problems also affected how she looked and how people saw her. By the 1970s, she had added a lot of weight, especially while she was married to Senator John Warner. This was because of changes in her lifestyle and the effects of her health problems. Based on her own experiences, she wrote a diet book in 1988 called Elizabeth Takes Off, in which she talked about her problems with weight loss. This book gave readers a rare look into her flaws and the ongoing fight she faces to keep her health in check while being watched by the public. In addition to already having health problems, Taylor smoked a lot for a long time, which made her breathing issues even worse. But when she got very sick with asthma in 1990, she realized how smoking was hurting her health and tried to quit. This choice was part of Taylor's bigger pattern of being strong and determined to take care of her health despite the many problems she faced. In the last 20 years of her life, Elizabeth Taylor's health got a lot worse, which made her slowly fade away from public view and cut down on her attendance at social and business events. After 1996, she wasn't seen at many public events. This was very different from her younger years, when she was all over Hollywood and the world's media. It became clearer that her health was getting worse as she dealt with a string of serious medical problems that made her already lifelong troubles. With chronic illness and pain even worse, getting asthma over and over again was one of the worst things that happened to her health during this time. Taylor had a major episode in 1990, which was scary because she had had breathing problems in the past and had smoked a lot. This illness pointed to more problems, and in 2000 she had another severe case of asthma that made her already weak health even worse. Pneumonia can be very dangerous, especially for older people and people who already have health problems. And Taylor's repeated bouts with this illness made her situation even more fragile. Taylor had long-lasting back and hip problems that started decades ago because of scoliosis and an untreated back fracture from when she was young. They got so bad that she needed hip replacement surgeries. In the mid-1990s, she had 2 of these surgeries, each one meant to help her move around again and ease the severe pain she felt every day. Even after the surgeries, she was still limited in her movements and in pain all the time, so she spent most of her later years in a wheelchair. The wheelchair became an obvious reminder of how her health problems kept getting worse and took away her freedom. Taylor had to go through another scary health problem in 1997 when she had surgery to remove a small brain tumor. Even though the growth wasn't cancerous, the surgery was very hard on her body and made it even weaker. After this surgery, Taylor successfully treated skin cancer in 2002. This showed the wide range of health problems Taylor had to deal with, from long-term orthopedic problems to major internal illnesses, making her health problems even worse. Taylor was diagnosed with congestive heart failure in 2004. This is a long-term, worsening disease in which the heart has trouble pumping enough blood to meet the body's needs. Heart failure is a serious disease that often comes with tiredness, swelling, and trouble breathing. This diagnosis was a turning point in her health journey. Over the next few years, the disease got worse over time, which made her general health and quality of life get much worse. Elizabeth Taylor died on March 23, 2011, at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles. She was 79 years old. Her death was caused by problems with her severe heart failure. She had been in the hospital for 6 weeks before she died, and even though doctors tried to help her, her health got worse. Taylor was one of the last living icons from the golden age of movies, and her personal and work life had been a topic of interest for more than 50 years. Her death marked the end of an era in Hollywood. Taylor was laid to rest the next day at Glendale, California's Forest Lawn Memorial Park. It was a private Jewish ceremony that showed how much she cares about her faith and history. The service was led by Rabbi Jerome Cutler, who had been in charge of many important events in Taylor's life. It's worth noting that Taylor asked for the service to start 15 minutes later than planned, a small, moving detail that caught her spirit. Her spokesperson said she even wanted to be late to her own funeral, which shows how playful and independent she was right up until the end. After the service, Elizabeth Taylor was buried in the large cemetery at Forest Lawn, which is where many famous people from Hollywood are buried. People all over the world were saddened by her death, and her legacy lives on not only through her famous movies and public struggles, but also through her important charity work. The problems she had with her health and her death show us how fragile she really was and how strong she was in the face of life's many obstacles. People paid extra attention to this house after she died. In 2004, Elizabeth Taylor bought a large piece of real estate that showed both her high standards of taste and her desire for peace and quiet, away from the intense attention of Hollywood. In Palm Springs, California's prestigious Old Las Palmas area, she bought a modern house at 901 North Prescott Drive. People from famous people, artists, and royalty came to this neighborhood because it was known for being very private. They came to enjoy the desert's calm weather and beautiful scenery. The 4,216-square-foot house was a beautiful example of mid-century modern architecture. It was made to fit in with the desert climate by having clean lines, open spaces, and a focus on natural light. The house, which Taylor lovingly called Casa Elizabeth, had 4 large bedrooms and 5 bathrooms, giving Taylor and her guests plenty of room. The open-concept great room was the heart of the house and was meant to make the living areas feel connected and move together. A big fireplace added warmth and personality, making the room feel cozy while keeping the home's sleek, simple style in check. The outdoor area at Casa Elizabeth, which included a swimming pool placed just right to enjoy the view of the San Jacinto Mountains, was one of the most beautiful parts of the house. The pool area was both a private haven and a fancy place to have fun. It gave Taylor a peaceful place to relax and a fancy setting for having friends and important people over. Taylor hired the famous designer Kathy Ireland to redo the inside of the house to make it look even better. Ireland's style of design was a mix of simplicity and sophistication, with a focus on comfort while keeping the home's architectural structure. The inside had a simple design philosophy, and the furniture and art were carefully chosen to go with the natural beauty that could be seen through the large windows. During the time she owned Casa Elizabeth, Elizabeth Taylor used it as both a private getaway and a place for some of the world's most famous people and royalty to get together. People knew that Taylor would greet guests with the ease and warmth for which she was famous at her home's quiet but classy social events. Because she was a Hollywood star and socialite, her home mirrored that, creating a space that was both glamorous and warm. The land was owned by Elizabeth Taylor until her death in 2011. After her death, it continued to get attention because of its connection to the famous actress. The house was sold for $3 in 2023, more than 10 years after she died. Million, which shows how popular it is and how much people value historic mid-century modern houses in Palm Springs. The house was quickly put on the market again for $495 million, which was a fair price considering its historical value as Taylor's desert oasis. What do you believe about Taylor Swift? Please tell us what you think in the box below. We hope this video was helpful for you. Kindly click like, share, and subscribe if you enjoy the video. Glad you watched, and see you in the next film. Thank you.